Every little thing that breaks your heart is welcome here. We'll make space for it. Give it its due time in praise for the wanting it represents, for longing for something more, some healing hope that remains. Not yet we promise no magic, no making it all better, but offer only the circle of trust, this human community that remembers, though imperfectly, that sings and prays, though sometimes awkwardly, this gathering that loves, though not yet enough, we're still practicing. After all, still learning, still in need of help and partners, still becoming, able to receive all this beauty and all these gifts that we each bring. Come, let us worship together. Our opening hymn is number 360, Here We Have Gathered.
Sorrows and regret, but in the shadows let us not forget. We who now gather know each other's game. Kindness can heal us as we give, we gain. Sing now in friendship this our heart's own song.
We're on. Okay, good morning. Good morning. We bid you welcome, who come with weary spirits seeking rest, who come with hope in your hearts, who are seekers of a new faith, who enter this hall as a homecoming. Whoever you are, whatever you are, wherever you are on your journey, we bid you welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Church of Youngstown. My name is Sarah Lowry, and I want to extend a special welcome to those of you who are visiting with us for the first or second time. We invite you to take a packet, which I believe are on the welcome table by the door, so that we can keep in touch. We also invite you to join us for coffee and refreshments downstairs in Channing Hall after the service, where we will be happy to answer questions about church activities and programs. And boy, there are quite a few activities and programs coming up in the next few weeks. We offer religious exploration classes for children and youth. Kathleen Hogue is our Director of Religious Exploration, who's right here in the front. And she can answer any questions that you may have about UUYO programs for children, youth, and families. Once again, welcome to UUYO. So first, I feel a congratulations and thank you are in order for the Centennial Committee. Can we please give them a hand? I know many of you were here last night to celebrate the centennial, 100 years of this beautiful space. We know that church is more than the space, it is certainly the people, but it's nice to have a nice space. So thank you to all who were on the committee and involved in putting on a wonderful event last night of celebration. Also this week on Thursday, October 23rd, Starting Point, a journey of our congregation, is the first of 4 sessions facilitated by Melissa Smith. They will be held virtually on Zoom in the evenings, starting this Thursday for the next 4 Thursdays, I believe, from 7:30 to 9. More information is on the back of your order of service if you are interested. On Friday, October 24th, we have the Coffee House fundraiser, also in the evening here, back downstairs in Channing Hall from 7 to 9 p.m. Admission is $10, and Tim Malone can answer more questions if you're interested in that event. Next, the following Friday is Halloween. Yay! And we will have a trunk or treat here at UUYO. Setup is at 5. Trick-or-treaters will begin around 6. Kathleen Hogue, our Director of Religious Exploration, can answer more questions about trunk or treat. And then Saturday, November 1st. Oh my gosh, it's November. Can we just take a second? That's crazy. Crystallizing Our Connections, an evening of dance, music, and poetry and art. Also back here in Channing Hall, 7:30. More information about admission is on your order of service. There's also a couple of flyers on the bulletin board as you go downstairs into Channing Hall. Lots of wonderful opportunities to come gather together and celebrate this wonderful, beautiful community that we have here. So with all of that, welcome once more to UUYO. Our chalice lighting this morning is titled We Gather in a Sacred Space by Emily Richards. We gather this morning in a sacred space, kindling a fire that burns here in our chalice and in our hearts. We gather to engage in a different kind of worship, one that doesn't just include sermons and hymns, but is holy nonetheless. We gather to honor our covenant and engage in congregational life, doing the necessary work to ensure that this community thrives. We gather together as a people of faith guided by love. A love that burns as bright as the flame in our chalice. And we light this chalice, as we have done so many times before, for the warmth of love, the light of truth, and the energy of action. Really? Our commitment is so deep, needed a little extra heat to get it to light. I now invite you, as you are willing and able, to rise and greet your neighbor, and we'll take some time to connect with each other for a few moments.
believe it's coming so fast. But yeah, so we're doing that, but I'm also doing trailer treats this coming Saturday. Because we usually hand out candy to over 1,000 children at trailer treats. So we don't just give them candy, we give them my little card and a brochure, an army brochure. Get a lot of families that way. I'm ready whenever you are. So today is one of those days that instead of bringing you a story, I am going to bring you a UU Minute, where we try to discover what Unitarian Universalists I am describing to you. So if you know the Unitarian Universalist that I am describing to you, please do not shout it out. Wait until the end when I ask. This Unitarian Universalist was born November 29, 1832 in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, and died March 6, 1888 in Boston, Massachusetts. She was an abolitionist and a feminist and remained unmarried throughout her entire life. During her lifetime, she was a teacher, a seamstress, a governess, and a domestic helper, and a laundress. She also spent her life active in reform movements such as temperance and women's suffrage. During her time in Boston, having been poor her entire life, she ran an intelligence office to help the destitute people find employment, so like an unemployment office. She tended to the sick, including her own family members, and she saw domestic drudgery in the service of people she loved as an incubator for creativity, writing, and in her journal, she said, "I can simmer novels while I do my housework, so see my way to a little money." Her novel, Work, finalizes her experiences as a servant, seamstress, and governess, and a lady's companion. It describes these and other forms of labor performed by women of her era as inherently dignified. As children, she and her sisters put on plays and often included other children from the Emerson and Channing households in their plays. Her compassion is what drew her to become a nurse in the American Civil War. She is best known for writing the novel Little Women and its sequels, Good Wives, Little Men, and Joe's Boys. Can you guess? Louisa May Alcott. Yes, correct. So I picked her because she's a teacher. And even though I'm not an accredited teacher in a school, I feel very much like I've been a teacher my entire life, so I can relate to her and to her compassion for people, for children, for people who are ill, and people who have poverty. So that's why I chose her today. So today, the children are going to be going to class with us down the hall here. We're not going to be going downstairs until after we do our class, and then you can find your children down in the big meeting hall afterwards, okay? So we're going to sing our children out with our usual song. Go!
Go now in peace, go now in peace. May the spirit of love surround you everywhere, everywhere you may go.
Please join me in reading our covenant in the order of service. Love is the spirit of this church, and service its law. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another.
Will our greeters please come forward? Each month, we share our non-pledge collection with an organization that is involved in making our community and UUYO a better place. This month, our offering goes to the Minister's Discretionary Fund. This fund supports friends, members, and community members in a variety of ways, including assistance with temporary housing, help with bills, and support for programming that benefits the community. If you are visiting with us for the first or second time, we invite you to let the plate pass, for you are our honored guest here, and we are glad to have your presence. We will now receive the offering that supports the life of our church, the Mahoning Valley, and our wider world.
I invite you to soften or close your eyes. Let your feet touch the floor and relax your posture. And breathe for the next minute.
Our first reading is titled, A Covenant Invites Relationship by Lisa Ward. A covenant is not a definition of a relationship. It is the framework of our relating. A covenant leaves room for chance and change. It is humble toward evolution. It claims, I will abide with you in this common endeavor, be present as best as I can in our becoming. This calls for a level of trust, courage, and sacrifice that needs to be nurtured, renewed, and affirmed on a regular basis. A creed creates a static truth, something that does not incorporate new insights and realities. A covenant is a dance of co-creation, keeping in step with one another in the flow of our lives. A creed seeks uniformity and a unison of voice. A covenant seeks harmony and a shared voice. Sometimes we may arrive at a unison, but it is not required. A creed gives authority to the statement. A covenant gives authority to the shared intention. A creed creates an us and a them. A covenant invites relationship. A creed is a prescription that must be relied on. A covenant relies on the treasures of shared truth. The overall trust within this covenant is the truth with a capital T, something which no one person can fully see, yet something which each and every person can come to know in glimpses, and in other stories, in epiphanies. Truth is ever-changing and our seeking to understand because of our limited perspectives. We grow into a deeper sense of the meaning of all things when we take our journeys seriously with full heart and mind. The courage within this covenant is in the acceptance and celebration of life, with all of its challenges, pain, ironies, and joys. And the sacrifice within this covenant is in the letting go of dogma, of assumptions, of control, and giving over to a greater wisdom which comes to us in bits and pieces. The task of this covenant is to take responsibility for the freedom we espouse. We know that we are interconnected and that what we do creates ripples of hope or despair, of affirmation or negation. What we do with and for one another is powerful and beyond our imagining. our second reading, titled The Work of Love by Anne Griffiths. Quote, "Unconditional love is not so much about how we receive and endure each other as it is about the deep vow to never, under any condition, stop bringing the flawed truth of who we are to each other." End quote. From Mark Nepo. "You really should get over to the right lane." I was in the middle of telling my husband a story when he directed me into the other lane. Caught by surprise, I changed lanes, but I asked him why he said that. He started explaining that the left lane was a turn lane but didn't have an arrow, so they had to yield to oncoming traffic. We were on a road that I drive every day. I was familiar with that intersection, and I know all about yielding. I stared at him, feeling frustrated. "I know that you're genuinely trying to help, and when you tell me how to drive, I get frustrated. You have a pattern of telling me how to drive. I know you don't mean to undercut my abilities. I'm going to point it out when it happens so that you know what I'm talking about." He apologized. We talked it out. When we clear the air about a little thing, it doesn't have a chance to grow into a big thing. We're building trust for when the big things inevitably pop up. My husband and I both went into therapy when we started dating. We wanted to show up as the most thoughtful, most loving versions of ourselves. We'd both been in relationships before, and preemptively dealing with our own baggage was a beautiful, shining moment of realizing that neither of us was as much of a mess as we had been previously, and that we were both firmly committed to growing and learning. The slow work sneaks up on us. We both have days when we're not our best or say something that unintentionally hurts the other. There are days I feel right and put on my armor to win the argument. But scorekeeping is about who hurts whom more, and in the long run, no one wins. At the end of the day, I get to love this smart, funny, thoughtful man who loves me to the moon and back. He is my favorite person, the one who holds me when I cry and accepts me in ways that still astonish me. We are partners, and every time we talk through it, that beautiful bond grows. When you can say, "ouch," and the other person listens and responds, there are no words to capture that love and peace.
Good morning. That was by an author. You didn't write that, right? No. Not about us. Definitely not about us. So in your order of service, compassion in the congregation is ... in ellipsis. What? When does anyone ever get text messages from somebody that uses ... and you're in suspense? And well, I'll let it go right now. Today's sermon is an invitation into a process to create a great and powerful tool for ourselves in this congregation. Because we do a lot as a congregation, and the amount of programming that's on the docket for the next few weeks is impressive. It has been. The event last night. We do a lot. We do a lot here. And outside of here, we do a lot in other spaces. And I love it when I show up somewhere and there's another one of us present. We're busy. We have a lot of programming. We come and go fast. And one thing that we do on purpose is that we are welcoming. So every time I've gotten up here today, this is my third or fourth time up here, there's more people So I consider that to be like the magic of an open door, right? We are welcoming on purpose. And that is down to the person-to-person waves of saying hello to visitors and new members, introducing them to people during coffee hour, but also in big systematic ways like being a welcoming congregation. That is a purposeful process in way to share that we strive to be inclusive of LGBTQ plus people. Another example in being welcoming is sharing that we adopted an 8th principle. We're still using principles at this congregation. 8th principle is the rejection of racism. And we went through a process and said on purpose that that's what we believe we should be doing. And those are ways of practicing compassion. Purposeful welcoming is a way of practicing compassion. Another way we do that is to be using inclusive language instead of exclusive language, or goes hand in hand with cultivating a sense of curiosity about one another instead of assuming. In fact, sometimes the patience in caring and understanding and curiosity that I see here is sometimes flooring. Beyond these things, compassion can also look like creating supportive groups that focus on shared challenges and resources. It can be fostering a culture where members actively listen to one another and respond with kindness. It could be something like joining a hospitality team, which ostensibly is preparing snacks and beverages, but is really a way to get to know a small group of congregants better. And by the way, if you haven't done, you might want to consider at least trying it out for a Sunday. Teams are on for a month of Sundays every 3 months, and you're responsible for one finite set of tasks like bringing snacks, making coffee, setting up the snacks, cleaning up. I always look forward to doing that, and makes me here every Sunday in that month. It is a great way to get involved and get to know people, and if you are interested in doing that, Linda is the person to talk to. I don't think she's here this morning, but it's pretty easy to find a way onto a hospitality team if you haven't yet. There's also our care team. They offer their presence or direct service for congregants during challenging times, both mundane or life magnitude. We have pastoral care with our minister, Reverend Joseph, for life questions, grief and loss, spiritual growth, existential grief, or just whatever, even if it isn't clear yet. We also host the County Ohio Can Changing Addiction Now chapter and all they offer to the community. And when I went to their website to make sure I had the acronym right, I saw a picture of Hope, our member. It was another case of seeing us offering compassion in the world. There's several other teams and ministries, big and small, teams and ministries, practices that we do here for one another and the community that I have to gloss over for now to make sure I can finish somewhat on time. But my bottom line here, if we accept Douglas the Curious Green Puppet's definition of compassion, did anyone see that on the website? Check the website. There's a puppet, and he's green. And he has a very simple and easy to understand definition of compassion. If we accept Douglas's definition of compassion as caring in action, or caring enough about someone to actually do something, I think we get points for effort and impact. But there's another specific example that I want to talk about. I'm really excited to talk about that offers another variety or type of compassion, focused specifically on how we interact with one another. In our healthy congregation ministry, and it is our healthy congregation ministry and team. At the denominational level, and in some UU congregations, you may hear that team called Right Relations team. Right Relations and healthy congregation ministry teams are comprised of congregants entrusted and trained to help the whole congregation practice communication and conflict engagement in ways based on our values. They can, quote from the UUA website, they can help change a congregation's overall understanding of conflict and covenant. They can provide healthy communication and conflict engagement training to the congregation and other resources. They can offer conflict engagement to individual members or teams. So, for instance, sometimes a member needs a sounding board or coaching as to how to bring their better self to a situation, or a smaller group within the congregation is feeling stuck. The Right Relations or Healthy Congregation Ministry team can help members or teams talk to each other more effectively. And by providing these opportunities, these teams can help set expectations and examples of communicating openly and honestly. Of all the possibilities that a Right Relations or Healthy Congregation team can offer, there is one thing in particular that our Healthy Congregation Ministry team would like to offer the congregation next year. And this is the ... Compassion in the congregation looks like an open process to create a draft covenant of right relations in which congregants come together to write, and at the next annual meeting, not this one, but the next one, vote together to adopt it. So what is a covenant of right relations, or if we choose to call it as such, a healthy congregation covenant? We heard earlier that a covenant is a living document. It is how we want to be together. It is not how we must. There are shalls based on values, not creeds. So one way to think about it is, if our congregational covenant we read together earlier and read every week is about why we come together, then a covenant of right relations or a healthy congregation covenant is about how we are to be together and how we would behave together. UUA's website says, these can take many forms and reflect the needs and best wishes of a variety of groups, from church committee members to staff groups to how members of an entire congregation agree to conduct themselves with one another. Creating and agreeing to a covenant can be an extremely effective tool for setting guidelines and building trust. There are several steps involved in a congregation adopting such a covenant, and it does not happen over the course of a few weeks. I suspect there will be opportunities for small groups to engage in reading of both other congregations' covenants and articles about the concept, and getting together to share what they learned, kind of like a reading group, but very tightly focused topically. That type of process reminds me of the process that 3 of our congregational leaders engaged in this year for reviewing the bylaws as part of board work. It also reminds me of the process this congregation engaged in ages ago when we were online only for a period of time, seems like forever ago, when we were considering adopting the 8th principle. There are also classes just for this topic on the UU Institute website, which are super effective. Some of them require a modest fee, $15, $30, for example, but I know that there are stipends for those fees if you are interested in participating, but the fee would be a barrier. Since our deadline for this process would end in about a year, in time for submission to the board for inclusion on the agenda for the next annual meeting, we can engage in a way that does not feel like someone pushed us onto a roller coaster and snapped the bars down before we knew what was happening. Having a right relations or healthy congregation covenant available to us will be a powerful tool. For me, it is like having a section of bylaws or an ethics statement or paperwork handy to look at. So, for example, when the City Tree Commission wants to make sure they're meeting their responsibilities, there's always a copy of the city ordinance available to look at. It's like a checklist of responsibilities. Or with the Commissioned Lay Ministry Program and the paperwork that Melissa Smith and I engage in, When we have questions about what our role should be or how we should engage the congregation in a given subject or topic, we can look to the paperwork for guidance. They serve as guiding documents that make these things clear when there are questions. I think my favorite example of a right relations or healthy congregation covenant, what it can be like, is a vehicle manual. It is a little bit reductive, but I think the analogy works. And to be fair, this applies across the board for cars, buses, or bicycles. For many, knowing how to operate a vehicle is one thing, and maintenance another. But eventually, no matter how well we travel in our vehicle of choice, it is going to have knocks or pings or error messages, even on bikes, or a tire that looks withered in the morning when we really need to be somewhere. The manual will have a schedule of maintenance items that makes clear what you should do to keep things running well. It is also there to reference if you actually run into problems. So whether you engage it before or after you have an issue, it's there as a guide. And if you do get knocks or pings or blown tires with some kind of vehicle, there are specialists available to examine and improve the issue. It can seem easy to come and enjoy all that our congregation has to offer to our own members and the rest of the world, just like we've been hearing about today. Getting to know each other on the hospitality team, joining the LGBTQ+ committee to support our welcoming congregation status, joining the care team or Ohio CAN or a bylaws review committee or the board or whatever. There's a million ways to plug in, it seems. But knocks and pings are inevitable in large groups of people operating in a system kind of like, but very different from family or school or work and their norms and boundaries. This might be something like, was that joke I made during the committee meeting a good idea? Or someone asked me to do something I can't do and I was angry to be asked. And they should have known better. Or should they? Should I have been more clear? Or I know I've been distant and now I understand it was stress from work, and how do I repair that? These are all firsthand examples, by the way. I like to think of our Healthy Congregation Ministry team as those specialists for these knocks and pings, available to consult before or during challenges about hazy or obvious questions in regard to keeping your relationships engagement in a large system of people running well. Sometimes just sitting with someone who is actively and purposefully listening to you can make things clearer. Sometimes there are observations or feedback available. Sometimes there are options like facilitating conversations or hosting a small group discussion, or there are no limits on the possibilities of what could be offered in seeking to make things run well. But a right relations or healthy congregation covenant outlines the values in our interaction that we want to enact for a positive impact with one another and the world. It is that paperwork or document or manual to consult to answer the question, did that land right? And the Healthy Congregation Ministry team are the experts. To break the analogy, though, the team are the experts available to us not only when we need guidance, but to help us create the manual. And typically, mechanics for vehicles do not make house calls unless they really like you or you're really ready to pay. So today is a simple invitation into the process that you will see start late this year and run through next year. You'll see it if you're interested in learning more in information available at coffee hour, in our newsletter, and weekly update. We'll also get the content on the website eventually. But I look forward to engaging in this process with you all and create another tool for our congregation that will enable us to realize our values and our relationships with one another. As an example of what we might work on, Kent and Akron have right relations covenants. And They are available to us to read together and perhaps copy, paste, and edit. There's a lot of material available on the UUA website, and a small discussion group could just take pieces of those things and talk about what they learned and how they think it could be applied here. The engagement is sacred work because it is a tool to make our congregation a healthier place for us, more effective with one another and the rest of the world. The word ministry wasn't used here very often up until about 10 or 15 years ago. And in a simple way, it is a service to self and others with a spiritual element. And so, in that sense, it is sacred work. If you'd like to discuss during coffee hour, we'll be downstairs. But that is what I believe compassion in the congregation can look like. Caring for one another to the point where you do something about something. And creating a document that we can use as a framework to help us in our relationships with one another. May it be so. And join me in prayer. Spirit of love, Spirit of compassion, hear our desires to care for one another in the world, to hold each other carefully, to make the community a place of healing and acceptance and welcoming to one another. May it be so. Amen.
Please join me in our closing hymn, Spirit of Life, hymn 123 in your gray hymnals.
Spirit of life, come unto me. Sing on my heart all the songs of compassion. Filling the wind, rise in the sea, move in the hand, giving life the shape of justice. Roots hold me close, wings set me free. Spirit of life, come to me, come to me.
We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, the courage to say ouch, or the fire of commitment. These we keep in our hearts until we are together again.
As you depart, remember the one great truth. You are loved and never truly alone.